In 2014, the LAPD Metropolitan Communications Dispatch Centre answered over 4.2 million calls total citywide between their 911 number and their non-emergency number, 877 Ask LAPD.
And emergency operator 271. Do you need the police, fire, or paramedics?
With just under 4 million people in Los Angeles, it's almost like saying everyone in LA might call 911 at least once a year. It's a lot of calls, and of the 4.2 million calls, 2.4 million of them came through directly to 911, when perhaps they shouldn't have.
Of those 2.4 million calls that came in on 911, only 30% were actually life-threatening emergencies. People will call for all things. They think that 911 is a solve-all phone number, when in fact, if they're calling 911 for something that is not of life-threatening nature, they are taking the opportunity from somebody that could be calling 911 for somebody that's having a heart attack or maybe a shooting in progress. Now that is being blocked off by somebody that's calling about a loud party. If you would call directly to 877 Ask LAPD, then you wouldn't be tying up the 911 system and preventing that person that's possibly having a heart attack from getting through. People might ask, what do we constitute as a 911 emergency? If it's preservation of life, prevention of crime, or a crime in progress, we consider those three things to be an emergency. If it is not either of those things, we ask that you call 877 Ask LAPD, which is our LAPD non-emergency phone number. In the Venice area, we typically get a lot of people calling 911 for loud parties, loud radios, people on the boardwalk calling and stating that there are people being a nuisance. We get a lot of calls of the loud drum circle in the beach. People call 911 for that, and that is not something that should be called 911 for. The 877 Ask LAPD would be a perfect number to dial if you have any of those types of non-threatening things. Dialing that number will get you to a live operator that can take the call and still send the police out there, but you will not be tying up the 911 system and tying up somebody that possibly has a life-threatening emergency from getting through. If you have a 911 emergency, of course, don't hesitate to call 911. People think that if they call the non-emergency number and they're waiting for 2-3 minutes, that, okay, I'll just hang up and call 911 and I'll get through to somebody right away. In fact, you might get somebody right away, but you'll be connected right back to the 877 Ask LAPD line because, again, it is not of a life-threatening nature. We don't have one officer for every call that comes in. It's just unrealistic. So the officers have to make sure they go out to things based on priority. Of course, life-threatening things would be a higher priority than a loud nuisance on the boardwalk.
Now, an emergency operator 404.
Sometimes people call the non-emergency number regarding a loud party in the area, and they're waiting for the police a long time and they're getting unhappy with the police response time. So they call back to 911 and they now start saying that there's somebody at the party with a gun and they hear some shooting. So that gets the police to respond faster, but then it changes their tactics as well. When they get there, they might now have their guns drawn because it's no longer just a loud party, it's a party with shooting. So the officers get out of their vehicle, approach the situation, and a person walks out from the party, has a cell phone in their hand, and maybe the officers misconstrue it for a weapon. The officers have what they think is a shooting suspect, and they might end up shooting the person, all just because somebody called back to 911 and stated that there was a shooting instead of just a loud party. There's a possibility of you being held liable for any injuries that may have occurred. So just stay understanding that LA is a big city and that the police will get out there as soon as they possibly can. We just have to go with life-threatening things before we can get to other things at times.